let's close these primaries so that we have Republicans voting in Republican primaries for their Republican Party nominee. When people refer to the magnet that draws people that are in the country illegally, they'll talk about jobs, they'll talk about health care, and they talk about education. And we should all be working every day to make certain that Tennessee is going to be our nation's conservative leader.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Lewis of the Tennessee Conservative News, joined by GOP nominee for governor, Marsha Blackburn. Welcome to the program. I know it was a hard-fought primary.
Well, it was a great primary, and we are ever so grateful to the people of Tennessee who showed up, who voted, who helped carry us to victory in this race. And as I said election night, Brendan, we invite everyone who supported our opponents to come join us in this race and make certain that we continue to push forward our conservative movement. And it's important to realize that our conservative movement is bigger than one candidate or one campaign. And now, as we are looking at November, it's important that we unite and that Republicans and conservatives unite. We see what is happening across the country with these far left DSA candidates and with people who are really Democrats who now are saying they're independents and running as independents. And we know that now Republicans need to unite, and we need to defeat the Democrats in November and send that message that Tennessee is indeed a solidly conservative state.
Absolutely. And the lady that you're running against, Cherry Green, she's not hiding it. It's on her website. She wants to abolish ICE. She wants to increase personal and business taxes, repeal the pro-life legislation, introduce more woke indoctrination into our government schools as if it's not covered up with it already. And this is not a scare tactic. It's the first time I've ever seen a Democrat candidate for mayor or governor or anything in the state here recently just start telling you, this is who I am. Used to, they'd cover it up, but now they're not even covering it up anymore.
Well, you're right about that. And when you look at my opponent and this far left agenda, we have to bear in mind, and we've seen this all across the country, the Democrat Socialists of America, they're the ones that are running the Democrat Party. And look at El Said's race in Michigan. It took Chuck Schumer less than 24 hours to go bend the knee and support El Said. And you are seeing the Democrats now united under this DSA agenda, which is open borders, abolishing ICE, defunding police, removing police, benefits for illegal aliens, not Medicare, but Medicaid for all, and really destroying the first principles that this nation was built upon. And, Brandon, isn't it so interesting that the Democrats created all these problems? They created all these problems with health care through Obamacare. Now they're saying, well, let's just federalize all of it. The Green New Deal, they said your electric prices were going to go up, your energy costs were going to go up by necessity. They wanted $5 a gallon to be the minimum of what you're paying for a gallon of gas because of all this Green New Deal. You look at so many other areas with education where they inserted these DEI and woke policies. You look at what they did to corporations, where they inserted these DEI policies. You look at what they did with raising taxes, and they didn't get all the taxes they wanted. They wanted a $4 trillion tax hike And thank goodness for President Donald Trump and Republicans in the House and the Senate. We got the largest tax cut, not a tax hike. So now the Democrats are saying, you better watch out. Here we come. Your property taxes, state taxes, sales taxes. We're going to raise all of those. Just as you're saying, they are telling you they're going to increase your taxes. They're going to make your communities less safe because they want to defund the police. They want to insert DEI into education and put more government control, not less government control, into education, into your life. The Democrats, if they had their way, they would run your life 24/7, 365. And that is the agenda that my opponent espouses.
Absolutely. And, switching a little bit kind of from a federal emphasis to state, I know that closing the primaries is something that is remarkably
Yes, yes.
important to the grassroots. I've seen anywhere from 500 to 3,000. I mean, I can look at election data and say, hey, they pulled all D ballots for generals and presidential. This is the one they pulled an R on. Now they're back to D. Like, it's a very easy pattern to spot. In 1999, in the Senate, you brought a bill to close the primaries. This has been like almost a 30-year fight, but we've gotten very little support over the last 6 years out of Bill Lee, Cameron Sexton, or Randy McNally to close the primaries. One good thing is John Crawford, who has killed it in the House, I think 2 or 3 years in the government committee. He lost his primary primarily because of doing that very thing. And so it would be great to have a governor who's like, let's only have Republicans vote in Republican primaries. Let's not have people that espouse a DSA platform to come into our primaries and vote for the Republican that is the most likely to do that. What are your thoughts of being able to get that through the House and the Senate? Boy, what a bellwether that would be in that first session to see something like that change that has been opposed not by Democrats, but Republicans for so long.
Yes, indeed. It is something that, when you look at how we were building the Republican Party in the state, and I was a county party chair, and you wanted to have people come vote in a Republican primary. As what we have seen now is that Democrats will, as I said, they claim to be independents, and then they come vote in the Republican primary. And you do not want these DSA candidates. And bear in mind, if you vote for any of the Democrats right now, you're voting for the DSA agenda. And you don't want them coming in. And Brandon, as you were talking about, so many people know, I've worked on this issue of making certain Republicans elect Republican nominees. And they would send me Facebook posts that they have seen where you've got Democrats saying, get in this primary, go vote in the primary and vote for so and so because they'll be easier to beat in the general. Think about this. And then they will go, as you were saying, from one to another of the primaries. And sometimes they're voting Democrat, sometimes Republican. What we want is to see that party registration so that we have Republicans voting in Republican primaries for their Republican Party nominee. And then we'll get to the general. But let's close these primaries. There are a couple of ways that we could do this. We could look at it for state and federal elections. I know there's some discussion around how you handle local elections that are considered to be nonpartisan. But here's the good thing. We don't know what that bill text is going to be, but what we do know is as your governor, I'm going to be leading the fight to make certain that we close our primaries and Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats vote for Democrats, and then we'll queue up for the general election.
Wow, I've waited 8 years to hear anything that sounds remotely like that from a governor. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Not getting out in front of my skis, but I assume that you will win the governorship. Switching gears to school choice.
Yeah.
School choice had a little bit of a rocky road with conservatives for really primarily two reasons. The first was the double funding of the students. I mean, everybody wants educational choice. The second one was probably worrying that the very institution that is in charge of administering the details is the same institution that created a school system so bad that now we have to get kids out of it. So it's like putting an assistant manager in that, they close down 5 stores. There's a new program to open them back up. And it's like, who do you report to? This assistant manager. It really doesn't make much sense. I run a school for a living. And then those are the two big chief concerns. And of course, as a homeschool parent, I've paid into the 50% of my tax dollars have gone for 30 years in Tennessee, and I can't send my kids to the schools. And so, what are your thoughts on school choice moving forward, and how maybe we could make it a little bit more fiscally responsible while making certain that we don't turn the last few refuges of education into what we're taking the kids out of it because of the government supervision and entanglement?
Yes, and right now is the great time to begin to rework how we deliver education. There are a few things that should be at the top of the list. Number one, the student, and the student being in an environment where they can learn. That has got to be. So, number one, the student is going to be at the top of the list, not the teachers union, and not some board, but the student. And the second is having that child in an environment where they learn. Now, Chuck and I are parents and grandparents. We've got 2 children, 4 grandchildren. Every one of those children learn differently. They attain knowledge differently, they retain knowledge differently, and they apply it differently. And you want a child to know how they best learn. And the third thing is you want to make certain that child knows what their gifts are by the time they finish high school. So they know if they want to go to a TCAT or a community college or a 4-year college, and they have an idea of what God has gifted them with and how they can best use those skills. And the fourth thing is, I don't want any parent to have to win the lottery in order to have a say in their child's education. We want to make certain that people have options. So, good public schools that are focused on the child, charter schools that are going to be there for innovation, parochial schools, homeschool, private schools, so that parents have options for getting their child in the right environment so that that child is in a posture where they can succeed. So I am looking forward to working with the General Assembly and Chairman Mark White there at the House Education Committee, Chairman Don White at the Senate Education Committee. We've talked about what flexibilities are coming down and how we can make certain that public schools are meeting the attainment levels that they should meet, that charter public schools are going to be incubators for innovation, and that we're rewarding that innovation as our children are excelling and are doing better. But we can't take and accept mediocrity. We have got to make certain that our children are going to be learning and that our teachers are going to be held to a standard that is going to foster education and growth and learning with those children. And as I said, now that there is less federal paperwork to deal with, our hope is that what you're going to see over the next couple of years is teachers will be freed up to teach. And the other thing I will add to this is looking at curriculum. And I have some friends that I've worked with for years who have weighed in, and I've heard from educators that they are wanting to weigh in on this to make certain that curriculum is going to be something that is historically accurate, factually accurate, and that is going to be presented to our kids.
Well, last question I have really is on education. Of course, we can talk about
Sure.
anything else you'd like. I do have one other thing I might just bring up at the end, but when you talk about school choice, it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to ignore one of the biggest problems we have, and that's that we're spending $800 million a year educating illegal aliens in Tennessee. And
Mhm.
again, our last governor, we did not get any support for him out of Bo Watson and Lambert's bill too. And it wasn't the best bill, but it's moving in the right direction. It's better than nothing. Of letting school boards choose if they're going to charge tuition to illegal aliens or not. But yet, our school board, even though it's an 85% issue, almost every one of them voted against their constituents in a resolution. So it's like, here's this problem that probably should just be handled at the state level so the taxpayers don't have it. They don't want it. But our public officials, many of them that are even Republican, lack the backbone to tackle this. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
My niece had to leave her school in Sevierville and be homeschooled because she went to the teacher and said, I'm just surprised. It's been, almost 2 months. I don't feel like my kid's learning anything. And the teacher came to her and said, 80% of our kids here are English as a second language, and it's all I can do to just get them basically up to it. And like that's crazy that you'd have to pull your kid out because of that. And there are lots of other parents that have that story. This is not nibbling around the edges. This is a primary issue, almost $1 billion
Yeah,
that we
it
could
is.
spend on our kids. What are your thoughts on that? And,
Yeah. Yeah,
what
and
could we
there
do
are
about it?
a couple of things there, Brandon. Number one size fits all education does not work. And that has been proven. And that is one of the reasons that school choice has become so incredibly popular with parents and with Tennesseans. And the second thing is when people refer to the magnet that draws people that are in the country illegally, they'll talk about jobs, they'll talk about health care, and they talk about education. And that being the three basic prongs of that magnet. You have seen it, I have seen it, it's been discussed for years. And our legislators were on the right track for getting a bill that would say, all right, you're not going to get free health care. You're not going to get free education. And if you're going to access that education, then you're going to need to pay for that education. So, this is something that I know the legislators are going to bring back up. I am going to support working through this issue. And as your governor, we're going to resolve this issue. It is so imperative that we make certain that our children have access to a world class education, that our children are being challenged so that they know they are going to be prepared for the world. And it is important and imperative that our children be taught a historically accurate, factually accurate academic curriculum.
Well, you're very kind with that. I hope to see movement on it because it's a
Yeah.
big issue. And as you think about expanding school choice, if we had an extra billion laying around by the time inflation catches up with it, boy, that would be handy. The last one that I guess conservatives worry about, and frankly, this is one of the few issues that Republican primary voters, believe it or not, as you poll, Democrats tend to agree on, whereas leadership not so much. And that's the topic of corporate welfare. I remember when we had the special
Mm.
session on Ford Motor Company to give them like a billion or a couple $1 billion, even though they were losing $1 billion every year. Seems like a weird place to put your money as a business coach. And now 6 years later, they've produced nothing. You look at all these companies that have promised jobs and not created them in Tennessee, and we have a very poor track record of getting the money back, which makes sense if
Mhm.
the business isn't doing well. they're probably not going to have the money to give it back to you. And then finally, the ones that I think are really just as a small business coach, working with 807 small business owners over the last 12 years, I couldn't imagine my government, if I ran a hamburger shop or a coffee shop, bringing in somebody with my tax dollars to compete against me after 20 or 30 years of running a business in Tennessee. It's one of the few things that you see Democrats and Republicans, even like the Titans Stadium. I think it polled at like 70, 60% disapproval across the state, but we keep doing it. Is there any way we can get companies here without putting taxpayers on the line? I'm pro business. I really am. Like I don't have an axe to grind on pro business policies. That's what I do for a living is coach business owners. But there's something in my gut that's like, man, this feels not conservative. This feels incorrect. What are your thoughts on that moving forward? And I know it's complicated because every other business is every other state offers these handouts. And as we're competing for business, is there some compromise? Is there something that could split the difference, or what are your thoughts on it genuinely?
Yeah, yesterday I did a roundtable with a lot of small business owners up in Kingsport and heard directly from them as to what their relationship with the state was and what they wanted and expected that participation to be, and how you could make it more nimble and flexible. And of course, they want to see jobs recruitment when it is the right type company. And that point was made several times. There's a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, again, you're not going to have a one size fits all approach when it comes to recruitment. And as you well know, and as you are seeing in your area and across the whole state, there are a lot of big companies that cannot make a profit by being headquartered in a big blue state. The taxes are too high. The DEI woke policies are too egregious, and they cannot make the ends meet and be fair to their shareholders. And so they're looking for places to relocate. And of course, a state that has no state income tax, and I thank the dear good Lord every day that we were able to defeat that when I was in the state senate, and I still meet people that helped in that fight. But no state income tax, right to work state, great people, solid counties, good local governments with good credit ratings. These are the things that add to prosperity in our state. And of course, they're going to look. But what we need to do, as you look at that payroll, as you look at the number of jobs, as you look at the taxes that payroll, that amount of payroll is going to generate, the shorter period of time that it would take for the state to recoup their money, and then clawback provisions if they do not hit those benchmarks. And Brandon, I think one of the things there is that you need to be able to kind of slot those benchmarks in. And if they miss one, they don't move to step two. And if they miss step two, they're not moving forward. And you get that opportunity to revisit that agreement every step of the way. I do think that is something that is important to do. But we do know that for a lot of our local small business manufacturers, our small business vendors, they want to be able to be a contractor or a supplier to a larger company. And having those in proximity will open those doors of opportunity for those businesses and for our citizens to have higher wages and more productive careers right here in Tennessee.
You're very kind. I remember when I ran my painting business when Volkswagen came into town. I mean, I don't know what all the arrangements were, but the economic benefit, and this has been 15 years ago or longer, we painted the learning center there
Yeah.
that in partnership with Shenandoah State and pressure washed it and a whole bunch of executive houses. And we did their original headquarters when they were doing the factory downtown. And so it does bleed up into the
Okay.
community. It does sometimes bring a union to your town, which you never know what you're going to get. Okay, little Trojan horse
Well,
there.
I was the one that stepped up and spoke out against that unionization. So
Well,
yeah,
we'll
I
see
hear you,
how it
buddy.
pans out. Well, you've been kind with your time. We've gone
Of
over
course.
here. Any last subjects, topics you want to cover? The reason I did this interview, and I'll just tell my subscribers, I want you to succeed. I want to have a strong Republican governor. I feel in my heart that you will be an improvement over the last administration. COVID really just put a bad taste in my mouth. I feel like we
Yeah.
missed that every major topic we were just about wrong on, even though we had Tennesseans like me speaking out early and often, and we're still feeling the effects of it across the globe. Completely unnecessary. So I just feel like you're going to be more conservative and do a better job. And I just want to make sure that our Republicans get behind you because we do have an issue in Tennessee. I'll give you the last word.
And I encourage everybody, go to our website, marshablackburn.com, and reach out. Come join us. As I said, our conservative movement is much bigger than any one candidate or any one campaign. And being able to build our conservative movement, to build our parties, so that we are stronger, not weaker. One thing I will add as we close, in 1776, the battle cry was the British are coming. Now in 2026, what are we hearing? The communists are coming. And you look at that DSA socialist agenda and you think about our precious children and grandchildren and the future that we want for them. And we should all be working every day to make certain that Tennessee is going to be our nation's conservative leader, that we're the state that people look at and say they're doing things the right way. That's what I want to see in my state. And if we're working together on this, if we're focusing on some of these foundational issues that you and I have talked about this morning, then we're going to strengthen our foundation. We're a well led, well governed state. And we want to take what we have as a foundation and build on that to be that conservative leader, to be the number one state in protecting life and protecting our children and providing a world class education for our children, for making certain that our communities are safe, and making certain that there are jobs for today and for tomorrow for our kids, so that they know that yes, Tennessee's been a great place to live, to see their parents work. It was a great place for them to grow up. It's a great place to retire, but it's a great place for them to come home to and to realize their American dream. We can be the state of opportunity and we can do it the right way. We are Tennesseans.
Well, thank you very much. I'll
Sure,
close with this and then
anytime.
wrap up. I've seen the women in Tennessee, in the Republican Party, frankly, have the courage that the men often lacked over the last 6 years. 6 years. I mean, I've just seen it, and
Yeah.
to me, it's a sad statement. So I think if we got a good, strong woman at the helm, the men can't help but follow. And you've got a rough group to manage up there in the legislature. So good luck to you. Uh, you do. Good luck to you. Uh, gird whatever you got to gird. It's going to be a rough ride, getting those guys in line. But at any rate, thank you for your time. I appreciate you very much. And guys, if you enjoyed this interview, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and get out there and vote. We don't need Jerry Green in the office of governor, and we need a strong showing. So it's time to put the primary behind us and to get out there, get mobilized, and make sure we have a strong showing in November. It's Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative. Thank you, Ms. Blackburn.
Thank you.